Climbers, for plenty of music's most compelling artists, going independent doesn't mean going small. It means reaping the myriad of benefits of foregoing the major label route, and we're going to hear from these artists on this episode, so stick around. All right. Welcome to the Climb! This is a show dedicated to helping singers, songwriters, and indie artists like you create leverage in the music business, because once you get that leverage happening, once you get a little bit of that magic popping and everybody can clearly see that your music has value, that your art is working, that what you're doing is working, everybody's going to come out and want to be a part of it. I promise you. So the question is, how do you get that started, right? That's what this podcast is all about. C.L.I.M.B, creating leverage in the music business. That's name came from my good friend and co-host, Mr. Brent Baxter, who's an award-winning hit songwriter with cuts by Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, Lady A, Joe Nichols, and more. And what you love about Brent, if you're a songwriter, is he's gonna make you pro, man. That's what you want. Then that's what you're going to get. And how's he going to do that? By revealing how you write like a pro, how you do business like a pro, and then on the regular, he's going to give you an opportunity to connect with the pros, create relationships, meet the people who can take you to the next level. You can find Brett very easily at songwritingpro.com.
And I would like to introduce you to my co-host, Johnny Dwinell. Johnny owns Daredevil Production. They're breaking artists digitally by identifying new fans through data. It's complicated, but he has a big brain. If you're an artist looking to increase your streams, blow up your video views, sell more live show tickets, and get discovered by new fans, TV, and music industry pros, then Daredevil Production can help. Daredevil has worked with multi-platinum artists like Colin Ray, Tracy Lawrence, Ty Herndon, and Andy Griggs, just to name a few. You can find Johnny at daredevilproduction.com. That's production singular, no S, and there's no S because there is no other. Johnny D.
Hey, brother.
Hello, my friend.
What's happening, man? So today's episode is going to be about, it's a recent Billboard article that just came out with like 1 million contributors to it. So I'm not going to go through the list of names.
Okay.
But I will put the link to the article if you subscribe to Billboard in the show notes so that you can read it for yourself. But there's just some amazing insights in there. I've been getting really frustrated with my artists right now because a lot of them are, they're getting money, they're out there working, but there's a big piece of the puzzle that they're not doing,
Okay.
like, and mostly it's marketing, right? It's like they're developing their artistic abilities and becoming competitive artistically, but they're not grasping that they got to do this marketing thing, So anyway, this just resonated with me. There's a whole lot about all of it in this article, and it's feedback from a bunch of artists. And what I did is I went through. We're gonna read through each of these little quick quotes and get your take and my take on it. But I'm also gonna let you know, because half these artists, I promise you won't know, but I'm gonna tell you how many freaking monthly listeners they have on Spotify.
All right.
And that's gonna change the game for you. Some of them you're gonna know. Most of them you probably won't. I know there's a lot of Hispanic artists in there that,
Cool.
Unless you speak fluent Spanish and listen to Hispanic artists in singing Spanish, you're just not gonna probably know the names. You know what I mean? But they are making a good living.
Nice.
So anyway, before we do that, let's take care of a little business though. Join the C.L.I.M.B community on Facebook. C.L.I.M.B community, just search for that in groups. You got to ask to be let in. We let everybody in. And as long as you're not trying to sell something, okay? And this is where you're going to find support, love, help, answers, co-writes. This is a vibrant little community, man, and we want you to participate, Just keep the main feed for questions that you have that you honestly need answers from, and it's not about how good you are, right? Like a question like, what do I do if I need to do this or that,
right?
And anything that would be of value to the whole community, comedy stuff. There's some piece of video you see, it just blows people away because they play so well. I'll throw some of that stuff in there. It's just like, holy cow.
Yeah.
And then we want to hear about you. We want to hear all about you in the comments on posts that happen every single week. So your new music goes on a comment on the New Music Monday post. Your gigs go as a comment on the gig alert every Thursday. And then what we'd like to celebrate on the pod here is new heights and what we call Wednesday wins, because that post happens every Wednesday. And you
Mhm.
can put, whatever you got, man, whatever you want to brag about. This is like total. We want you to brag about yourself.
Yes.
We want to hear, we want you to, and then we're going to celebrate it. So, what do we got today?
Let's see. Climber Coy Comer says recorded a song yesterday after work that hopefully I'll release in the next month or so. Started working on a demo for another. So congrats, Coy, making progress there, man. Recording songs, get them ready to put out. So good job, Coy. Let's see. Taylor Hughes Music says I received 3 nominations in this year's Josie Music Awards. So
Nice.
congrats, Taylor. Looks like let me click on this here so I can read it. Female Southern Rock Country Rock Vocalist of the Year, Female Multi-Genre Artist of the Year, and Country Song of the Year for her song "Red Wine and White Lies." So congrats, Coy. Congrats, Taylor. Keep on climbing.
Love it, man. Good
Hmm.
job. Congrats, Quick. Congrats, Taylor. I love it. I love it. I love it. Let's get into this thing. We got a lot
Let's
to cover.
go.
So top 23 indie artist secrets to success. Okay.
All right.
This is across genres. Staying independent can ensure an artist has greater ownership over both their creativity and their intellectual property. The ability to pivot or react quickly when a song unexpectedly takes off, and the freedom to put together a team that truly has their best interests at heart. That's that's huge, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you've ever been like major label or major label adjacent, you know how big that statement is. Put together
Hmm.
a team that truly has your best interest at heart. People that will lie down in traffic for you. Of course, there's more intangible upsides to staying indie too. Above all, the feeling that when success happens, it's truly earned. So, here, Billboard magazine surveys some of the most compelling indie artists making music and charts and chart inroads. And now about the challenges that they've seen to being independent and the advice they'd be offering anybody considering it. And for the record, indie, what is indie? Who is indie? The artists featured in this story meet the guidelines of Billboard's top independent albums chart, which includes labels distributed independently. So some of them may have, a label, right? But it's not a major label, or
Hmm.
through an indie division of a major label group. So that would still be an indie division, as well as labels that are independently owned, control their masters, but are distributed directly through Universal Music Group, Sony Music Entertainment, and Warner. So some of these will have these artists will these most of these artists have relationships with the labels, but they don't have a deal with them, with the
Gotcha.
majors. They'll have a distribution deal, right? Um, so, uh, and how does that happen, man? They want to distribute it. All the distributors make money like on the masters, right? They make a percentage on
Mhm.
the masters for distributing it, right? And who do they want to distribute? People that they know are making money on their masters. So, are you going to be able to
Exactly.
talk to those people? Yeah, like when you create
Mhm.
that leverage, right? So,
That's right.
the advice I'd like to offer any indie artist is, quote, take mindful steps to get to know and understand your artist identity so that you can become something unique and genuine, whether it's through vision boards, writing diaries, or practicing adjacent forms of artistry to help you flesh out your identity as a musician. It has been instrumental to me in making sure that I don't lose my way. That is from Paris Paloma. All right. Now, for the record, Paris, if you haven't heard of her, 4.3 million monthly listeners on Spotify. Um, I'm going to ask you what you think about this, Brent, right after Icon. I think this is mission critical and why, like, ultimately, I know we're in crisis right now. Like, songwriters are getting screwed. Like,
Mhm.
we haven't completely made this jump over to digital yet. Labels are still, especially in country, still holding on to radio. It's all kinds of issues and laggards and stuff happening. Right?
You're right.
It's not clean yet. It's not clean. It hasn't completely developed yet, but
Mhm.
it's in the going in the right direction because the process of recording your being able to record your own music has been decentralized. You can do this at home, right?
That's
And
right.
marketing and promotion processes have been decentralized. You can do this at home. And this is good for the art because you don't have to conform. In fact, you'll get more attention early on, which is when you need it the most because you stick out more
Mhm.
when you don't conform. This is what I love about the artists that I work with. It's what I love about Mackenzie. She's just different. Like it, and
Yeah.
she's still honing that, but and she works
Mhm.
her butt off, but she's different. And that's she's not trying to be anybody else but herself, and she's on
Right.
that hunt.
Yeah.
She's seeking that. And my concern is like, and I've had so many of these when you work with artists at a certain level, right? Like artists who, let's call them mid-level artists. They're actually ready for a record deal, right? And they
Yeah.
know they're ready, and their teams know that they're ready. And these artists understand the game at the major label level, and they start to play it, right?
Mhm.
And the problem is the major label game, especially in country music right now, is significantly outdated because it relies so heavily on terrestrial radio.
Mhm.
So Brent, like you remember the reaction that Florida Georgia Line got from when they first started from the industry when they first started shopping crews around to try to get a
Well,
deal?
I remember hearing about some shows they played in, like, Nashville early on, and the industry people looking at the stage, it's like, I do not get this. What I
Yeah,
don't get what's going on here. But then the people, I think was it Big Loud or
yeah,
that crew over there looked at the audience.
yeah,
They said, "We get that," because the
yeah.
audience got it. So, yeah, it was very polarizing when Cruise came out because a lot of people were like, "What is this crap?" And
But
other
even before
people
it came out, right? Like, I mean, they didn't sound like anybody else. Like, you
Right,
can love them, you can hate them. A lot of people don't like the direction they took the genre of country
right.
music. That's fine. But you can't argue that they didn't sound like anybody else.
Mhm.
And 100% of the labels that they were shopped to said no, not
Yeah.
once, but twice.
Yeah.
They said no because they didn't think they could get the song on radio.
Mhm.
Why didn't they think they could get them on radio with a song with a huge hit like Cruise, right? Because it was so different sounding. Being
Mhm.
different sounding used to mean a smash hit on radio.
Mhm.
Now it's a bad thing. Why? Because radio can't afford to take chances because taking chances means you could lose listeners, and radio can't afford to lose one more listener.
Right.
So if you're playing or aspiring to play the major label game really well,
Mhm.
you're writing and producing your sound to be palatable on radio, which is by definition, in my opinion, a process of sterilization.
Mhm.
So,
They don't want the
uh,
pattern to interrupt that may get someone off radio, may get someone to change stations.
yeah, yeah, I think, what the hell did the labels know, and what the hell did radio know? And they
Mhm.
had to break crews themselves, and they did, right?
Well
And then it was all over radio, wasn't it?
well,
So,
here's the bottom line as an independent artist. If you're just gonna sound like everybody else, they don't need you. They already have their relationships. They don't need you. Why would they go with you? They don't need you.
yeah,
They already got 12 of you standing in line, and they already have relationships with 8 of them, and they haven't gotten them to the front of the line yet, and they're gonna go with them before they go with you anyway. What's the point?
that's right, that's right. So, same question. The advice I'd offer any indie artist is, and this is from Josh Sanger, who's the manager of Paris Paloma. Yeah, you
Mhm,
control the narrative, so don't settle and be bold. An artist working independently has the ability to reach their fans directly with no barriers to entry and to create their own culture. Independence also provides a comfortable space for an artist to discover who they are and run their business with full oversight of the costs.
mhm,
It's incredibly important for anyone getting into this business to understand how it works, what you're signing into, and how your money's being spent, right? I mean,
mhm.
I'm all about that, right?
Yeah.
So, um, freedom is the most important asset an artist can have in many more ways than just artistic. If you're serious about being independent and you know how to work it, it's way better than signing with an established label. For example, I own my own publishing company. I own my own touring company. The capability of reacting and not being on a part semester plan or a year plan is priceless. The capacity of reaction is one of the biggest assets of being independent. And that's from Pepe Aguilar, who is he's a Hispanic artist, 7 million monthly listeners on Spotify, right?
Mhm.
So he can move fast when
Yeah.
something isn't working. He's not in a queue. It's all about
Mhm.
him, you know?
Yeah.
Um, one of the most challenging parts of being independent is being able to make connections with global artists who are represented by major labels for collaborations. And this is
Mm.
from Chris MJ. And he's a Chilean artist. And by the way, 44.7 million monthly listeners on
Alright.
Spotify. Okay. Brent's like, yo hablo.
Sí, sí, muy bueno.
um, this I want to provide some insight on this too. Like, this is a challenge for him. Why? Because there's a stigma.
Mhm.
Okay. There's a stigma with all the publishing or with all the PR people that work inside and outside the record labels that work with the major label artists. There's a stigma on fame and the way, and that stigma is still very, very much stuck in broadcast, which is correct in a total broadcast world before streaming, right? Before an indie artist can get 44.7 million monthly listeners. Oh my God. Like, how much money is this dude making? Chris MJ, right? So
Yeah.
it changes as the walls around the major labels and the major label artists continue to crumble, right? And if that
Mhm.
sounds like pipe dreamy to you, let me just ask you this, Brent, remember when movie stars would never be seen on TV because that was considered a step down and therefore bad for your brand?
They're not gonna go slumming it in the
Yeah,
little box
I mean,
in
that's
someone's
like
living room.
you're a TV star, and then the next level was movie star. You don't go back to TV if you're a movie
Right, yeah.
star. That's embarrassing,
Yep.
right? That takes away from who you are. Now look, everyone is doing Netflix, Prime, and Apple original content on TV.
That's right.
And the amount of people physically going to movie theaters is plummeting, right? To
Mhm.
the point where the theaters might not be around much longer. Who
Yeah.
knows? The big, all knowing, all powerful machine that makes the rules becomes weak and ultimately can disappear during a paradigm shift in the industry. That's what streaming was. That's what Netflix was to Hollywood, a paradigm shift. This is a new way we're going to do this. And, Netflix owns Hollywood now. They crush all of the major networks on television, 6 ways from Sunday. So it's, they changed the game forever. And who knows what's going to happen to theaters may become a byproduct, maybe an afterthought in 5
Yeah.
years, you know? So that stuff's gonna happen in the music industry too, people. This is what I'm telling you, you know? So, I mean, I remember when I first started working for Colin Ray, his team, like, we had a record we wanted to sell. We were selling it independently. We didn't have a
Mhm.
label. We set up a store on his website. We put bundles in that store because they
Mhm.
listened, which was great. And then the first thing I started to do was, he had a Twitter account. So I just went and searched for everybody that had the word Colin Ray in their bios and found a ton of them and started following those people.
Yeah.
And the team was like, "What are you doing?" I was fired. Like the gig lasted 24 hours for his social media. Why? Because they're like, we don't want Colin Ray to appear like he's got time to follow people, and he doesn't follow people, and like that's not famous, you
Right,
know.
yeah.
That's the old paradigm, man,
That is.
but these people were freaking out that he followed them. Do you think if I had one more day to send out a link for the damn CDs, I would have sold a boatload of those?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, right? But
Mhm.
they don't that's what I mean by the paradigm shift. Like, the way it works now, not the way it used to work, and so we're
Johnny's like, "Do you wanna be famous or you wanna be rich?"
yeah, like and Colin didn't know, like, he just
Yeah.
doesn't participate in that, that was, like,
Yeah.
that's on his management, but I think that's indicative of a lot of companies now,
Mhm.
you be careful of that. So, um, now the manager from Chris MJ, Sergio Javier Ampuero, the advice I'd offer an indie artist is take responsibility as an artist and form a good team that can support you in making the right decisions. Take responsibility is the key words in that statement, people.
Mhm.
Like, you have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
So the magic you seek can be found in the work that you're avoiding.
That's right.
Okay, what work are you avoiding? Embrace it. It's gonna suck at first. You're not gonna be good at it at first. It's going to be frustrating, but then you're gonna learn how to do it, like, you're gonna learn how to work Premiere Pro or Final Cut Pro. It's a sophisticated tool, but I'll bet you know how to work Pro Tools or
Yeah.
Logic, and that's sophisticated too. It's just you know how to work all the buttons on one of them and not on the other. Go learn how to
Mhm.
do it. It's not that expensive. It's $30 a month, I think, to get that tool. It's an amazing tool that everything you see on TV and in the movie theater is now, it's either that or Final Cut Pro. That's how they do it.
Yeah. And
Uh,
but also I wanna balance that with the other part of that quote is get a team around you. So
yeah,
yeah, learn to take responsibility, but you don't have to do it all by yourself. Otherwise, there's no point in getting a team.
yeah,
So
yeah.
there's balance, responsibility, but also it's not the Superman syndrome where you have to do everything yourself or it's not going to get done. You have to let some stuff go if you're going to play a bigger game. Not let go of the responsibility, but get a team. That's something I've heard a couple times so far is get a team.
Already, yeah. Get a team. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. If you're grinding to get to your highest point of success and you started by yourself, it means more when you make it.
Mhm.
The celebration when you make it is different because you get to say that you gave all of yourself to your dream, no matter who believed or didn't. And that's from Lay Banks, she has 17.8 million monthly listeners on Spotify. One of the most challenging parts of being an independent is when you're doing the same thing every day with what feels like no motion and spending money. No one knows you. No one is there to help you or believing in you. It's just God, you, and your dreams. Kenny
Mhm.
Blank, who manages Lay Banks, right? Um, Being an independent artist means having total control over both your art and your business. This requires being an entrepreneur, taking all
Mhm.
the risks and having no one to blame but yourself and your team. Make sure you have a good team. Well, there it is again, Brent.
There it
Um,
is.
you can still yell at the label when you are the label, but you'll be yelling in the mirror. That said, there is great risk, there is great reward. The
Mhm.
potential upside is tremendous when you own your own masters in publishing. Don't let anyone convince you independent, quote unquote, is synonymous with small or broke. Okay. And that's from Andrew McInnes, the CEO of Teamwork Management, who manages like Sturgill Simpson. Okay. Um, we have been able to offer full control of our music without having to encounter a lot of I'm sorry, we've been able to have full control of our music without having to encounter a lot of politics and red tape that other artists do. It has given us the ability to do what we love the most in the way that we feel is best, and even allowed us the freedom to experiment with different sounds on our newest album, Jugando a que no pasa nada. That's from Grupo Frontera, who has 30.9 million monthly listeners on
Wow.
Spotify. Why is being independent important to you? It gives us the power of decision making and accountability without relying on third parties. This autonomy allows us to act swiftly and adapt to changes in the market or consumer behavior. As a team, we can identify shifts in consumption patterns and work towards addressing them on the same day without needing to wait for approval or direction from a label. Mostly waiting for approval, right?
Mhm.
And the label's got other interests in mind, right? Like they want to use their guy, right? Because they're going to get a kickback on that,
Yeah.
right? No, use our guy for this. Like, so this enables us to stay agile, innovative, and true to the artist vision. That's Lucas Barbarossa, who manages Grupo Frontera. Okay. Independence to me is having autonomy and ownership of your art. This makes me feel a closer connection to my audience because they know that what comes from me is from me. And that's from
Mhm.
Lofty, who has 13.7 million monthly listeners. The advice I'd offer any indie artist is establish and maintain a clear budget. By implementing a detailed budgeting system early on, I was able to allocate funds effectively, ensuring that I always had enough money set aside for crucial aspects of my career. By tracking income and expenses diligently, artists can make informed decisions about where to invest their resources, ultimately leading to greater financial stability and long term success. That's from 310 Baby, who has 5.1 million monthly listeners on Spotify.
I remember reading in Jimmy Buffett's autobiography that when he was starting out, he'd be in the hotel room after the show, like, going through receipts and that kinda stuff with the door
Yep.
locked, hoping no one caught him because it would ruin his reputation,
Yeah,
as
as
the
the
beach
party guy.
bum,
Yeah, as the
party
margarita guy.
guy, but here he is going through, receipts and stuff, for business, taking care of business.
Yeah, man, that's it, like, this is part
Mhm.
of the gig. This is
Yeah,
part
it
of the
is.
deal, and if you want to be at a level where you can have 5,000,000, 10,000,000, 40,000,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, you're gonna have to learn how to do this,
Mhm.
and you're gonna have to find the time to fit it in with all the other, stuff that you're doing to be an artist, right?
Yeah, because
Um,
honestly, that's the part you get paid for. The music you do for free because you love it.
that's right,
It's
that's
the
right.
going through
Now
receipts, it's setting up a budget, that's what you get paid for.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and so, Gentry Salvatore is the manager of 310 Baby, and the advice that he's offering is always ask why. The music business will this is so good. The music business will make you pay for what you don't know,
Mhm.
and it's your choice on how you choose to learn. Right? Well, we always called that idiot tax. Everybody's gotta
Yeah,
pay an idiot tax because, by the time they get to me, they've already paid an idiot tax. They've already done this and that, and they figured it out. So, how do you wanna learn, right? If you do not educate yourself on what's important for the longevity of your career and choose short-term gratification, you'll end up paying for it in the long run. And I've seen that so many times where it's like, "Oh, I finally got some money. I'm gonna go record that record," and that's the short-term gratification. Get the CD done. Get the
right,
record done.
yeah,
Right, and it's like, "Okay, but how are you gonna release it?" "I don't know, how you well, what how many songs should you be doing? Like, what's the total budget that you have?" You know?
yeah,
I just had this conversation with, an artist in my office yesterday, and he's like, "Well, what's the amount that I should be spending if I do this?" And I said, "Well, I can't tell you, like, a dollar amount, but how about this?" Because he's looking at some potential investors, right? I said,
mhm,
"How about this? It's a percentage."
yeah,
Right? So whatever the total amount of money is that you can get from that person, don't spend more than 5% on making the record. If that means you're only doing 2 or 3 singles, then so be it. Spend the rest of the money on, promoting it because
yeah,
that's how you're gonna, get ahead.
mhm,
So, next, an indie artist has to have the understanding and knowledge to grasp that investing in their own career is crucial, whether in marketing, in making better content, in doing big tours and shows. An
mhm.
indie artist is one who makes decisions and pays for them from his own pocket. And that's from Fede Laria, the manager of Bizarrap. And Bizarrap has 36.3 million monthly listeners on
Not too
Spotify.
shabby.
Not too shabby, but man, that's it, right? It's investing in your own career. Some of you people won't blink an eye at going and buying another Les Paul or a plugin. You're like, well, that's a tool, and I'm using that tool every single day. Yes, you are. Yes,
Yeah,
you are. But you know what? You also need to invest in the marketing and in the promotion and in touring to improve your brand and to
mhm.
otherwise you're making really great art that nobody's going to hear. So
Might have to in yeah, it's a lot easier to invest in tools that we enjoy than to invest in tools that we don't enjoy.
right, and you know what? It's just the reason I promise you this, the reason you don't enjoy marketing, the reason that you don't enjoy video production and video post production is because you're not good at it right now.
Yeah,
That's why you don't enjoy it. Nobody enjoy I hate not being good at it?
yeah,
But, like, when I listen, for years okay, like, the magic you seek is in the work that you're avoiding. Well, for years, I avoided the time and energy it was gonna take me to get my head around Premiere Pro, which is like a top level video editing software tool,
mhm,
and I made miracles happen on iMovie.
yeah,
Miracles happen on iMovie, okay? And then it just got to be so blatantly obvious that everything that I was wanting to do, I couldn't do on iMovie because I had maxed out that tool. And so it was like, one of Josh Roy's videos. I just was like, I know that this is going to take me probably 60 to 80 hours because I'm going to be learning. It was just brutal in the beginning. But you know what? Like YouTube, man, how the hell do I import this into this? How do I change the aspect ratio on this? Okay, go to YouTube, look it up. Here it is. There's a 2 minute for tutorial. Okay. Back and forth for a week you
Yeah.
know? And now I have a working knowledge of that tool where it can move pretty much as fast as I think, you know what I mean? And I can
Yeah.
operate it like that, and that's when it becomes fun because then you can make this content and, you know, like one of this artist I was talking about yesterday, outsourcing video content, right? And I'm
Mhm.
like, nobody can afford that for what you're doing. You're gonna spend too
Yeah.
much money on the video content. You need to go and spend 2 grand on lights, e even if
Mhm.
you don't even wanna buy a camera, you're gonna do it with your iPhone, okay? But spend 2 grand on lights and go get Premiere Pro and get busy and start
Yeah.
learning how to use that tool because you're gonna have to make so much content that you're not going to, it's going to be it's not gonna be cost effective to outsource it, even if you're getting the deal of the century, you know?
Yeah.
You need to be able to, again, like, react, right? And on a dime, be able to throw something together because if you're using third party, right? We'll go back to the third party comment we've heard in
Mhm.
uh, a couple of these comments here. If you're using a third party video service that's your best friend who's giving you the deal of the century, he's not waiting around the crap money that you're paying him uh, for you to call. You know, he's got
Right.
other stuff he's doing to make
Yeah.
money. And so all of a sudden you're like, hey, this thing just happened. And if we make this video real quick, well, sorry, man, I'm on vacation or my parents are in town, or I can get to that like next week because I got all this other project I got to finish. I
Yep.
got kids. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but you could do it right then and there if you just learn how to do it, you know,
Yeah.
and got to
The
the point.
bro rate is also the slow rate.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Mhm.
So, the biggest benefit of being independent is maintaining creative control over strategies in the music that I create. My song Daylight had an original release date scheduled for June, but I knew we had to get it out as soon as possible based on all the engagement we were building around it on socials. So I called my manager. I just told him we needed to get the song out, and the team made it happen. I think if I were signed to a major label, I wouldn't have been able to make a last minute change like that, and the song wouldn't have had as big of an impact. And that's from David Kushner. Okay. He
Dude,
said,
mm,
yeah,
I got a
yeah,
story. So, a friend of mine who will remain nameless at one point was signed to a major record label, and they were working on his first record. He had stuff in the can, and it was um, very time sensitive type of material. Like it referenced things that by the day was getting older, right?
yep,
And
yep.
so that's one of his stresses was, man, we need to get this record out because like it was a funny country record. A lot of the
Okay.
references are getting older, right? Every
Oh,
day
sure.
it has a shelf life kind of thing, you know? And so that was one of the things that was stressing him out was like, we got to get the sucker out. And that label wasn't in a big hurry to get it out.
Yep.
So yeah, if it was himself, it was already been out.
There you go. And David Kushner, by the way, 22.7 million monthly listeners. Okay. Um, so this one I love. I learned how to play in public. I taught myself how to play guitar, sing, and write songs standing on street corners. If I were you, I wouldn't sign any contracts ever if you don't have to, because it ain't to your advantage. Unless they're giving you a whole bunch of money, and even then, try to get the cash with a handshake. Let me put it to you like this. I put this in red. If you don't know who the sucker in the deal is, you're the sucker.
Yeah.
Okay. Asking why being independent's important is really beside the point. I didn't set out to be independent. I was always seen as so confusing and so different that the people I was dying to do business with didn't want me. Okay. The
Yeah.
woman that discovered us when she started realizing that I was going to be difficult to handle or to tame, one afternoon in frustration, threw her hands down on her desk, looked across to me, and said, "Damn it, Charlie Crockett. It's a Coke and Pepsi world. You are going to have to dance." She said, "My problem was that I just wanted to be Woody Guthrie and that this was one of my goal and this was my golden opportunity." Well, the only thing she was right about is I did want to be Woody Guthrie. Where I disagreed was, and this is important, I don't think you have just one shot. You have to keep rolling the dice. Okay.
Mhm.
At a certain point, I felt like I was out in the wilderness. And when you get far enough out there, the air is real good. You learn how to survive in it and you just keep going. You don't ever turn around. That's from Charlie Crockett, who he's on 30 Tigers actually, and 1.4 million monthly listeners on Spotify.
Nice.
The advice I'd offer any indie artist is you have to be persistent in selling your musical vision to find your fans and reach the masses. Persistent in selling your musical vision and finding your fans to reach the masses. Being creative and trusting your instincts as an artist can help to level the playing field. And most importantly, don't take no for an answer. That's from Kevin Leviton, Vector Management, who's manages Charlie Crockett. Um, the biggest benefit of being independent is I can work closely with my team and lead my projects, making sure my goals come to reality. At the end of the day, as the artist and mind of my project, that makes it easier for all of those on the same page. That's from Junior H. um, the advice I'd like to offer an indie artist is trust yourself, be authentic, and see your artistic vision through. Continue to create the music that speaks to you, that will resonate with your core audience, and don't compromise for quick commercial success. That's Shabuzi and 33.2 million monthly listeners, right?
Mhm.
Um, now, Shabuzi's manager chimes in. The biggest benefit of being independent is having the flexibility to move at your own pace. For example, if we want to release a record, we control that internally and can capitalize on any traction instantaneously rather than to having to get approvals from multiple parties. We live in a world where the consumer attention span is shorter than it's ever been. So being able to strike while the iron is hot is ever so crucial to the success of an artist's rollout, right? That's huge right there.
Mhm.
Um, it's important for an artist to be able to say yes or no without manipulation or punishment. I believe creative freedom is priceless. Art is beautiful. It is honest. It is therapy. It is healing. It is personal. And it is often disrupted and tainted by business minds and models looking to make a quick coin. While the independent route is not without its own risks, like self financing, I'm truly grateful to be in control of my life and my art. And that's from Ray, Raye, and she has 31.5 million monthly listeners. Ray's manager, Paul Keene, says being independent doesn't mean working alone. It's an old saying, but it takes a village, and it really does. Your team is everything. There it is again. I firmly believe getting that right is essential for business success. Next, we're going to hear from Juke. The advice I'd like to offer any indie artist is being independent doesn't mean working. No, sorry. Being independent artist is one of the most empowering positions to be in. Independent artists feel the weight of responsibility for the future of their careers, which I think oftentimes leads to an increase in grit and work ethic or a decrease. I mean, I think it can go both ways. I think I've realized the power and value of a team that's aligned with the artist's vision. A small but effective team around an independent artist and the right strategic partnerships can make a huge difference. That's Juke, 20.3 million monthly listeners. Um, now, Ethan Curtis from Plush Management, who manages Juke, says right now, artist culture is very anti major label. The seed of this is obviously that the traditional label deals have been very
Mhm.
exploitative. Excuse me. However, I'm noticing that among young artists, this culture is breeding a fear of engaging with anyone who might be able to help scale their projects.
Mm.
I was speaking with a really talented artist the other day, and they were telling me how they're drowning simply trying to keep up with the content creation and writing new songs. Yet 5 minutes earlier, they were telling me how they never respond to any music pros that hit them up on socials because it's stupid for an artist to have a manager or a label partner and give away money when they can do it all on their own. I had to stop them and point out the contradiction. The great news is the sort of predatory deals that sparked this label conversation in the first place aren't all that's on the table anymore. There are
Mhm.
companies out there that allow artists to retain ownership of their music and maintain creative control while still offering help with all the tasks artists don't have the time for or network to facilitate. And they'll do it for a very justifiable portion of the profit that is fractions of what artists had to give away in the
Mhm.
past. So, if you just want to write the songs in your bedroom and hopefully pay the bills, then you might be able to swing it on your own. But if you want to go big, building the right team is the best investment an artist can make. There is no billion-dollar businesses that are run by one person alone. That's true.
Mhm.
So, team again, and the companies that he's talking about, like label services companies, right?
Yeah.
Um, the advice I'd like to give any any indie artist is. A personal connection with your team is paramount. As the industry continues to shift, having a team that you trust and can envision being in your life for the next 2, 5, 10, or 15 years is crucial. Katie Crutchfield has always had a very specific vision for Waxahachie. While it has certainly evolved over the years, having a group of a few core trusted team members around her has been key to keeping Katie's goals focused and achievable. That's from Katie's management company. That's from a guy named Reynold Jaffe. And her artist name is Waxahachie. She has 871,000 monthly listeners.
Man,
Um,
talking about the team and stuff, it makes me think of, if you were to scale up, you're going to hire a band, right? Most likely, you're not going to be like, nope, I'm just going solo acoustic because
that's right.
I can do it all myself. I'm going to go play Reliant Stadium or wherever with just me and my acoustic. Now, some people can do that, right? But
Yep.
very rare. Odds are you're going to scale up and get a band, right? And you don't question that. Why? Because it makes your product better. All right. It makes the product better,
Yeah.
makes the live show better. Well, what if you look at your marketing team and these different business services, label services as just band members? I just
Yeah.
I need someone to play marketing for me. It makes it makes the business better. It may not make the show itself better, but it's like you looking and going, I'm hiring a band mate. I'm paying them, yeah, but they're providing a service. You do that for a bass player, for a drummer, right? Why not do
Yeah.
that for your marketing person or your whatever else, business services person, booking agent? Just look at it like you're putting the band together. It's not
Yeah.
quitting, it's not selling out.
Yeah. Well, listen, that is most one of the most popular ways that all entrepreneurs get in their own way. That's
Oh,
one
yeah.
of the most common ways is they don't know how to delegate, right? And they
Mhm.
just think, well, the time is going to take me to teach you. I can just do it myself. Well, yeah, but
This
uh,
time
this time, yeah, then next time you're getting it done and you're not doing it at all. Somebody else is, right?
well, that's
Now
the
all of a
thing.
sudden you're more productive.
Like, I remember when I brought Ren into your office at Daredevil, and we set him down and started work, and
Mhm.
you trained him on how to use Pro Tools to edit the
Mhm.
podcast, do the basic
Yeah,
editing, and it took you were there we were there for hours, and then we had to go, we had to buy Pro Tools ourselves so he could have it on one of my laptops that he uses for work. And so that took an afternoon for you.
yeah.
But guess what doesn't take afternoons anymore? Doing
To
the bulk
edit
of the
your
editing on the
podcast.
podcast, which,
It saved
you
me
know,
a lot of afternoons.
now there are things that you would do differently, and there are things that maybe, slip through his fingers that wouldn't slip through yours. But, there's a book I've read that says like 80% done by somebody else is 100% awesome because it
Yeah,
leaves you up to do other things. And he does
yeah,
stuff for me that it frees me up to. And every once in a while, there'll be a typo in an email that goes out. I'm like, crap, I didn't catch that because, he's learning English, he's Chinese. But,
yeah,
or, well, anybody would, can make typos. But it's still like it saves me so much time so I can do the part that no one else can do. I can do more of that part, which is write my songs, host podcasts, interview people for songwriting pro events, do that kind of stuff that it's most other people can't do that for me.
yeah, yeah,
It's worth it to
yeah.
build that team.
And I mean, listen, you, like what would I, if I was managing you, what would I tell you that you would need to, um, get somebody else to help you with, right? Somebody, what's a good thing to like on the team for somebody to do in the team? Like, here's the thing: you have to be the one writing the songs, right?
Mhm,
You have to be the one recording the songs. Maybe you don't need to be there for the mixing. Maybe you do. Depends on the extent of your creativity and how you
mhm.
like to be involved in that. And you have to be in the content,
Yeah,
right? So you got to be in front of the camera, but you can certainly uh, delegate post production on video stuff, if
yeah.
to somebody else in the team that's not costing you something, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Um,
And honestly, if you're an artist, if it's not mission critical for you to be a writer on everything, the more you climb up that ladder, the more you can find quality songs by other people.
yeah,
I mean, George Strait didn't get huge writing his own songs, neither did Tim McGraw. Garth Brooks
That's right.
even cut, like, half songs he didn't write. You know, he
Yeah.
didn't write The Dance. He didn't write Friends in Low Places.
Yeah.
He was smart enough to
Yep.
know, boy, it's hard to beat the town. It's hard to outright the the whole Music Row. So
Yeah.
even that as an artist, if that's not just part of like, this is really who I am and what I have to do, you get to a point you have to earn it where you can find people will give you quality songs because they're making money too, and it ends up becoming a win for them.
Yeah, and I just had a couple more writers mention the same comment that you mentioned. Like, I'll go back to talking about Mackenzie. Like it's like okay, Mackenzie is still like as far as amassing an audience early in her career there, but she's working it. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm,
she's clearly intent on growing her audience and getting bigger. And she's making more money this year than she did last year. She's
mhm,
doing more shows. She's booked through December now, doing more shows this year than she did last year. They're filling in the holes during the winter, which is a big deal up there in Chicago.
mhm,
So these things help you kind of climb that ladder and get in there, and getting a team around you can help. That's the theme of all this stuff, guys. Like it's there's a few more anecdotes in there, but it's all the team, right? Like this is what you got to do the team. But why do you need the team? You need the team because you got to do the work. The content has to be there. It has to keep coming out. It has to
mhm,
keep happening. And if you haven't figured out a way to do that reliably beyond a reasonable doubt, where you're not in a queue, you're not relying on somebody else. I mean, anytime you rely on somebody else and they come back to you and fail for whether it's a justifiable reason or not, you
mhm.
still lost, right? Because you didn't
Yeah.
get that when you needed it. And now you're behind, and now you missed this opportunity to work that fast. And it's your own fault
Well,
for
it's
doing it.
picking I think it's picking your bottlenecks because we just talked about get a team. You can
Yeah.
outsource your final edits on your social media. Well, you are relying on that person if they drop the ball. Yeah, maybe you can do it yourself, but it may just cost you time as you're going, "Oh my gosh, they're not gonna get to it. I gotta hop in here and do it." So it's almost like pick your bottlenecks, right? If you have a team, you are relying on some people. Yes, if I hire a drummer, what if the drummer doesn't show up? Now that's a potential problem, but
Yeah.
it's better than you trying to do the one-man band thing for most artists, right? So
Yeah.
what do I want my bottlenecks to be? Do I want it to be the label who says you can't put this song out? Or do I want it to be, these other things that are maybe not so mission critical, like, oh, the edit didn't come back on the video. Well, that's a
Yeah.
lot easier bottleneck to swallow than the label says I can't put the song out for Veterans Day and it's a veteran song because they
That's
got
right.
somebody else queued
Bottleneck
up on the
you can
label.
control, right? Bottlenecks like when whoever's doing the post production on that, if it's not the way you like it at first, man, it's a taste thing, and they're gonna figure out like what you like and what
Mhm.
you want, and then they're gonna be able to do that for you,
Right.
in
It's
such a way.
Thomas
And
Sowell. Yeah.
you touched on something else. I think that every freaking artist listening to my voice right now knows how to hustle at the last minute, and you've had to do this a million times, where you got a gig and somebody isn't able to make it. Your
Right.
guitar player can't, your bass player can't make it, your drummer can't make it. You're like, well, crap. And guess what? You got a black book of people that you
Yeah.
call, and you're on the phone and you're making it happen. Why? Because you've embraced the idea that you're not going to do this gig without the drummer,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And you need to have a drummer. And this isn't gonna be ideal, but you're gonna get this guy in there so you can get through the gig and you're gonna make it,
Mhm.
okay? And maybe you've even done that enough to where your backup drummer can fill in and do that show, right? That
Yeah.
that you have and do it just well. Well, if you had that same attitude towards making content,
Mhm.
um, what would your world look like?
Yeah. Like, it's gonna
What
get
would
done.
your world look like? And marketing and promotion, right? What would your world look like? When you get good at it, when you start to hit on something, when you're willing to fail enough that you get to the one thing that starts to hit and you're like, "Oh, I think I'm gonna adjust a little bit and do this some more." And
Yeah.
then you go and do that some more, and then all of a sudden, like, you forget about, like, tripling your following. You like 10x, 20x, 50x,
Yeah.
100x your following, and you start to blow up. Man, that's fun. I don't know of any artist that would be like, "Oh, I hate to have to go do that today." That's like, you hate it because nobody gives a crap right now,
Right.
and it feels like you're wasting your time. So anyway, that's all I gotta say about that, guys. Learn how to do digital better. Download my free PDF, I think it's 38 pages, called Whoever Owns the Traffic Rules the Road. It's all about the traffic. And this will help you unplug from all of and identify when you're talking to people who are like leaning towards a expertise in broadcast versus digital, right? Because you're going to break digitally, not on broadcast. So it would be like you're an actor and you're trying to go to TV and you're working with some manager who's like, no, man, listen, you're a movie star. Movie stars don't go on TV. And you're like, hold on a second. Like, all the movie stars are on TV, you know? No, that's not the way we used to do it. You know, it's like, well, listen, you're right in the middle of this right now. This will help you. Just go to giftfromjohnny.com, JOHNNY, and tell me where to send it. It's absolutely free. We'll get it out to you, and just get your head around the difference between the two platforms. Guys, this podcast exists because we want you to win, so keep on climbing.
And we'll see you at the top.